Starting from this lesson, we'll start to work on projects, meaning we'll start to create web pages. The same web page can be generated by many different codes. Therefore, in the following lessons, we'll repeatedly create the same web page, but we'll try different methods each time. The navigation bar you saw here will be our first project. Before creating any projects, always do an analysis of the page structure. At a first glance, this navigation bar has 6 buttons, but the first 5 buttons are aligned to the left and the last one to the right. All the buttons are placed in the middle of the blue bar. These are the visible parts, but next let's take a look at the invisible parts. The blue bar spans across the whole browser window, but all the buttons are displayed in the central area. This central area is the invisible part. Well, we've already learned how to deal with situations like this before. First, we create 2 divs, one parent div and one child div. We set a uniform height to the 2 divs, and remember, the child div will be used to house the floated elements. Therefore, you should never forget to set its height. Next, we set a width to the child div, and as for the parent div, you can just choose to set its width to 100% or simply leave it empty. Next, we assign margin 0 auto to the child div. The child div is now in the horizontal center of the browser window. All the buttons should be put inside it. We'll name this div main div. Next, the background. If you take a close look at the navigation bar, you'll find that its background is not a solid blue. There's a gradient in blue. To achieve this gradient, there are 2 methods: using an image or using the new feature provided by HTML5. We've already learned how to use the image method. We create a very narrow image and keep repeating it until every space has been covered. HTML5, however, has developed a new feature, which allows us to create a color gradient using the background property directly. Behind the background property, you first write -WebKit -linear -gradient. Behind it, you put a center parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, you put 3 values: starting direction, starting color, and ending color. We can see the background is now no longer a solid color. It has a color gradient. The advantage is that we don't need to use any images anymore. One less image to handle and less pressure for our server. But the downside is browser compatibility. The program we just wrote only works on Chrome. If you change into IE or Mozilla, it won't work. To solve this problem, we need to copy and paste the modified background property a few times. If you want your program to be compatible with the Mozilla, you switched WebKit into Moz. In the future, you'll meet more similar new features. They're quite handy and can save you lots of work, but you will usually need to prepare a CSS property for each browser. Next, let's create the 6 navigation buttons. Do you remember the routine operation we mentioned before? We need to convert the A tag into a block type and set a bigger width and height to it. But of course, we've got a problem here. The navigation buttons come in a different width. Each button width is decided by its clickable text. So how do we solve this problem? A simple solution would be measuring the length of each clickable text and then calculate the ideal width of each navigation button. But are there any other methods? Well, we can convert the A tag into an inline block type, Then we set padding left and padding right to it. We can see it works. The navigation button is ready. Next, let's create the navigation bar. But first, we need to learn 2 new HTML tags and 1 new CSS property. The 2 tags are UL and LI. The new CSS property is a list style, and its value is none. UL and LI are tags developed for creating lists. As usual, they come with a default style that we don't need. Therefore, we need list style to get rid of that default style. Each A tag is a list item. Therefore, we wrap each A tag with an LI tag. So here comes the question. Who should we assign the float to? The LI tag or the A tag? Well, the result will be the same either way. But which one is actually the better option, an A tag or an LI? Actually, in the future, you'll meet similar situations quite a lot. We would recommend you assign float to the LI tags. The A tag only needs to take care of styling the navigation button. But as for locating the button, it's the job of its container, the LI tag. This is like arranging furniture in your apartment. Usually you would put the closet inside the bedroom, but you could also put it in your kitchen. The closet will still work there, but this is just not the best arrangement. Likewise, assigning float to the LI tag is better than the A tag. After the first 5 buttons have been floated to the left, next we float the 6th one to the right. Once again, when you're floating elements, make sure you know clearly who their parent div is.